gonna start letting the participants in here. I'm going to try to. Deja ver.
Cute. Why? Did that say mute?
Buenas tardes, Guadalupe.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Vamos a empezar en un minuto, ¿ok?
Sí, está bien.
Ok. 1 second. Hey, Arnold, how you doing? Okay, I caught him unaware. Hey, Claudia, ¿me escuchas?
Sí.
Sí, okay. Hey, Arnold, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. We're going to get started here in just a second. I'm looking at some of the folks coming in. Mark, Joanne, Guadalupe, Felicia, Eleuteria. I'm looking for Reverend Campbell. So that might get interesting. I'm just going to check my phone here. Okay. So folks, we're going to start in just a minute. In about 1 minute, we're going to have the interpreters let people know which how they can kind of go about interpreting, getting the Spanish or English translations of Spanish. So we had a fair amount of people signed up, so I want to wait just another minute. Bear with me another minute before we explain so that someone doesn't come on just after the interpreters explain and then they don't know what to do. We'll give it 1 more minute till 6:05, and then I'll do a 10-second welcome, and then the interpreters will let everyone know what to do here. Yeah, okay. We might still get some stragglers, but that's okay. We'll cut loose here in just a few seconds. Thanks everyone for being here. Give us about just a second. We're gonna do the interpreting talk here in a second, and then right after that we will start. That'll be brief. Thanks for hanging in. Give us a couple seconds. Okay, we're at 6:05. So a couple people said they could hear me pretty well, so that's great. So you're on the Racial Unity Dialogue on the African American experience, anti-Black racism, and with Working Family Solidarity. My name is Leone Jose Bicchieri. I'm the Executive Director of Working Family Solidarity. And I'm going to give a welcome and go into things in a moment. But first, we're going to have our interpreters let people know in English and Spanish what to do if you want to choose the English or the Spanish option. And our interpreters are from a really terrific group called Somos Sur. We're the South, Somos Sur. We have two great interpreters with us today. So Eva and Crystal, why don't you please go ahead?
Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Mi nombre es Cristal. My name is Crystal, and I am an English and Spanish interpreter with Somos Sur. Soy un intérprete de inglés y español con Somos Sur. Como ven aquí en la pantalla, or as you can see here on your screen, to access interpretation via your computer, look on the left side of the screen. At the very bottom, there will be a little globe and it says interpretation. Once you click it, it'll give you the options of either English or Spanish. Choose whatever language is most comfortable for you. If you are accessing it via your smartphone, at the bottom right corner, there are three little dots that says more. Click on that. Options will pop up and you will see chat, meeting settings, minimize meeting, or language interpretation. Choose language interpretation. Then you will see the options of the different languages available and choose whatever is most comfortable for you. Si pueden ver en la pantalla, aquí es como pueden acceder la interpretación en el lado derecho. Es como acceder la interpretación en la computadora. Abajo van a ver un globito que dice interpretación. Opriman el globito y luego les va a dar diferentes opciones de los idiomas que están disponibles. Escojan español o inglés donde se sientan más cómodos. Si lo van a hacer por teléfono, abajo de la pantalla a mano derecha, perdón, me perdí. Les dije que la derecha era por computadora, pero es la izquierda. En la derecha es donde pueden ver por teléfono. Abajo van a ver 3 puntitos que dicen más. Escojan esa opción y luego les va a dar diferentes opciones como chatear, configuración de la reunión, reunión minimizada e interpretación de idiomas. Escojan interpretación y luego les va a dar los diferentes idiomas que son disponibles. Pueden escoger español o inglés, como se sientan más cómodos. Y luego arriba, cuando escojan su idioma, les dice finalizar y pueden finalizar la opción que escogieron. So here are a couple ground rules before we start with interpretation. The first thing is language is not a barrier. So to the contrary, when we have multiple languages in a space, we have multiple cosmovisions and multiple ways of understanding the world. We have the opportunity to expand and deepen our perspective, our imaginations, and possible strategies, tactics, and visions for what is possible. After going through all of these, a Spanish one will pop up. So in the meantime, I will interpret the English. A final de las diapositivas van a ver todas estas fotitos, pero en español, pero por lo mientras voy a traducir lo que dice. Entonces, para empezar, el idioma o lenguaje no es una barrera, sino al contrario, es donde cuando tenemos múltiples de idiomas y lenguajes en un espacio, tenemos multicosmovisiones y múltiples maneras de entender el mundo. Tenemos la oportunidad de expandir nuestra perspectiva, nuestras imaginaciones y las posibilidades de estrategias, tácticas y visiones por lo que puede ser posible. During the event, one diva, one mic. So we ask that one person speak at a time. Interpreters can only interpret for one person at a time. They don't want to put anyone in the position of having to decide which voice has privilege over the other. Durante el evento, un diva, un micrófono. Así es que, por favor, una persona a la vez. Intérpretes pueden interpretar solamente a una persona a la vez y no queremos estar en un puesto donde tenemos que escoger cuál voz tiene privilegio sobre la otra. Speak up. Speak loud and clear, ideally using headphones with a mic. Interpreters need to be able to hear the speaker over the sound of their own voice when doing simultaneous interpretation. Así es que durante el evento, por favor, hablen en voz alta y hablen claramente. Idealmente usen audífonos con micrófono para que les podamos escuchar sobre nuestra voz cuando estemos interpretando simultáneamente. Slow down, facilitators, presenters, trainers, participants, anyone that's speaking during the event, speak at a moderate pace, take a breath after each sentence, take a pause after switching speakers and asking questions. Slowing down supports everyone, not just the interpreters. Por favor, hablen despacio o tomen su tiempo en hablar. Si son facilitadores, si son presentadores, entrenadores o participantes del evento, por favor, cuando estén hablando, hablen en un paso moderado. Tomen momentos de respiración entre cada frase, entre cada oración. Pausen cuando estén cambiando de la persona que va a presentar o que va a hablar. Hablando más despacio apoya a todos en el espacio, no nomás a los intérpretes. Y aquí está. Y también en español todo lo que repasamos. So here is the Spanish version of everything we went through. One last time, speak slowly. Hablar despacio. Speak loud and clear. Hablar en voz alta. Decir su nombre cada vez que participen. Speak your name every time you participate. Una persona a la vez, one person at a time. And language is not
And I think we can turn on the interpretation now.
Okay. I'm going to click start and you all can give me the thumbs up if we're smooth. There we go. See that? Okay. So if you can hear me, hopefully that's everyone now. A couple of people have mentioned in the past that they had trouble using the interpretation. And what we've learned is that it may not work at all or may not work very well if you don't have the latest or almost latest version of Zoom. Voy a decir rápido en español por si alguien no puede usar la interpretación. Es posible que la última versión de Zoom en tu teléfono o computadora es posible que no reciba bien el globito y toda la función de interpretación. So, ojalá que todos puedan escuchar. So let's hope this works. We're going to go forward, so we want to respect people's time. I'm going to give a couple-minute welcome, and I see you, Reverend Falicia Campbell, that you were able to call in. I think I remember your cell phone number, so it looks like you're with us, so I'm going to go ahead. So thank you for joining us. My name is Leone Jose Bicchieri, and I'm the Executive Director of Working Family Solidarity. I've been looking through the participant list as the interpreters were giving their talk, and I probably know about half of you. And of that half, I know some of you quite well, and I know a few of you as acquaintances, and I really look forward to getting to know the other people. For those who are not familiar, well, let me take half a step back before I say a couple things about Working Family Solidarity and then introduce one of our board members, Reverend Falicia Campbell, who will have our opening remarks. I want to thank Adriana Avila McClintock, who works with us on communications and development. She and I go back. I hate to break the news to you, Adriana. It's like 18 years. Unbelievable. We've been working.
We're a little bit longer than that.
Longer than that, okay.
I think it might be over 20 now.
Okay, well, I would prefer 18 if that's okay with you.
That's fine. Then we're younger.
Yeah, I think it's been 5 years. No, we've been together a long time, and she's terrific. And then you sort of met Crystal and Eva from Somos Sur, tremendous interpreters. And you can look up more about Somos Sur, S-O-M-O-S. The second word is Sur, S-U-R, for interpreting. And Asia Anderson is our chat moderator, a great sister who's been helping us and adding a lot to what we're doing. So, and then we have a number of people on the phone who are active with our organization as members in communities on the west side, southwest side, and south side. Our membership, our active constituents that work with us on things are about 95% African American or from the Latinx community. And the mission of Working Family Solidarity is to unite low and moderate income families to fight together for equitable development. So we focus primarily on jobs and housing. And we believe that in order to reach justice for all low and moderate income workers, which are the vast majority of human beings on earth and the vast majority of people in this country, that we can't do that without also dealing with the issue of white supremacy and the issue of racism against all people of color, and particularly against African Americans and Black people. So we believe that in order to stop exploitation, economic exploitation of working families, which again, we are the vast majority of people in the United States and the world, but that we can't do that without honestly looking at the way that we believe, our organization believes, that the wealthy elite of this country, several thousand mega wealthy families that control 90 to 95% of all the wealth in this country, it's in their interest to make sure that the rest of us have all kinds of problems in finding unity so that we can't get better jobs, more housing option, better health care, and so on. So our organization, as you can tell by the title, Working Family Solidarity, we believe that the issue of worker exploitation and racism go together, and that we can't really advance on racial justice or justice for working people until we realize that they're actually intertwined and that they work together, and that the racial divisiveness between us is not just there the moment we're born, but there's a reason it exists in this society and promoted by very powerful forces so that we don't get together and we spend our time fighting each other instead of uniting, destroying racism, and fighting so that people of all backgrounds are doing okay. So that's just a little bit about Working Family Solidarity. I'm not going to say much more about us. Website is just workingfamilysolidarity.org. We've been doing these teach-ins and racial justice dialogues and know your rights trainings. We normally do these in person. Some months ago, we finally realized we can't do that very soon, so we began to do them over the computer, if you will. And we have people from various parts of Chicago, sometime from other states, and on a couple of calls, we've actually had a couple people from Europe who heard about us and wanted to join in and hear. So today is a racial justice dialogue. In late February, we're going to be doing a teach-in, so a little longer presentation with also plenty of dialogue on white supremacy and some of the key moments in U.S. history of how that's become really emboldened and pushed forward, a violent form of white supremacy. So that'll be late February on the 25th. I'll tell you more about that at the end. All of you will be able to speak if you want. That might be tough, but we'll see if we can get everyone in, or those who want to talk. Do not feel pressured to talk. The idea here is that Reverend Campbell will start us off in a minute with about 10 minutes of talk, and then we'll move into hearing, and I'll facilitate from whoever wants to speak, sharing your experience or having an analysis, because we also believe we can learn from each other, right, and come out of here richer and with more strategy. So I'm going to move now to one of our board members, Reverend Falicia Campbell. She and I go back a number of years, and she is a board member of Working Family Solidarity. She's also the director of For Your Consciousness Ministry. They run a food pantry, they have a community church, they have after-school programs at 1923 West 51st Street, and in normal times, it's sort of our office away from our office. Reverend Campbell at the last minute had some computer problems just a few minutes ago, and so she had to call in, but I believe I saw her cell phone. So Reverend Campbell, if you can hear me, I am turning this over to you for your opening comments and remarks. Reverend Campbell, can you hear me? There you go.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. Good evening, Brother Leon, and to my sisters and brothers. Thank you so much for being here today. This shows solidarity for real. Briefly, I attended Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee, and I had never been south. And so it was an extreme different change for me. And I noticed, being a northerner, they always said to me, you're from Chicago, you're from Chi-Town, you're from Al Capone Town, whatever that meant. I know what it meant, but I didn't give credence to it. So one night we were out as students. You know, if you go away to college, you know, you go out as students. And we were out and we were just driving. We weren't doing anything. We were just driving around. And the white officer stopped us. And he told us to get out of the car, and he called us the N-word. Well, me being the northerner from the big windy city, I was very disturbed by that term. And I'm like, who are you calling an N? And he said, I'm calling you. And so my friends that were from the South kept saying, shut up, don't say nothing because he'll put you in jail. And I'm like, excuse me, who you calling an N? Well, they eventually said, would you please shut up so we won't go to jail? So I was quiet, and he just wanted to open the car and see what we had in there, were we doing any drugs, and when we were not drinking. And he said, okay, you can get back in the car. And he said, and you, young lady, watch your tongue when you're talking to a white man. I was very irate, and I said, oh, God, help me. Please help me. And my friends had to calm me down, and that was my first encounter with racism, because there was no reason for him to call me that name. My second encounter, and I'll be through in 30 seconds, I was working during my work study in college, and my boss was a Caucasian woman.
Take your time, Reverend.
And I know.
Take your
Can
time.
you hear
You got
me?
plenty of time.
Oh, okay. And she was a Caucasian woman. She was my boss. And so I was just doing filing work and typing. And I noticed when she was on the phone, she would say, yeah, them niggas ain't about nothing. You know, niggas and blah, 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 blah. And again, I said, excuse me, ma'am. I'm sorry. I'm not from the South. I'm from the North, Chicago. And I would appreciate it if you just would not continue to use that word nigger. And she says, oh, well, okay, I'm sorry, but I'm married to a black man. I'm like, but you're still not entitled to use the word nigger. So when he came in and he spoke to me and he says, yeah, this is my new worker. She's a student here from Chicago, and she gets offended when I call and say the word nigger. And he looked at me and smiled, and I said, yes, I'm very offended. And I think you need to school your wife. Well, little did I know, I asked the supervisor of those who were over our work study students, could I change jobs? And I did. Racism is real. Recently, a friend of mine, she went to a Chase Bank ATM, and she was getting her money out, and a white guy blowed the horn and called her all kind of N-words and was ready to fight her until the police came and stopped her. And then the brothers got out of the car and told him, you better not touch them. Racism is for real. And it doesn't feel good, especially if you've done nothing to them. I'm a pastor of a Lutheran church, which is 97% Caucasian. And every week we have racial dialogues. And no one says anything because they don't know what to say, because they do not want to admit what's going on. So me being brave, asked the question in one of our joint breakout rooms, why do you all not like African Americans and Hispanic people and or brown people? No one could answer the question. So I ask again, excuse me, why is it that you do not like black and brown people or any other person other than a white person? What did we do to you? No one could answer. So my response to them was, you can't answer because you are still dealing with the fact that you feel you're white and you're privileged and you feel that you're better than me. But guess what? We're all equal. And I think that is something we need to get across. I saw what happened January 6th, and it was just, I've never seen anything like it before in my life. I can hear my father, who was born in Baton Rouge, saying to me, this is something that I haven't seen in years. I haven't seen this since I saw them shoot Medgar Evers as a young girl and Dr. King. It was disturbing to me. This has got to stop. We need to know that we are one body. We all have red blood, okay? We may be of different color, different cultures, but we have one Lord, one faith, one baptism, and one red blood. I think that the more you talk, the nervous they get worse, because they do not want to acknowledge the fact that they were taught to not like us. When I was at WCFL radio, one of the young ladies told me, she says, my mom told me that black people were dirty and nasty and ugly and didn't take baths. I looked at her and I said, but do I smell? Am I ugly? And she laughed. No, you're a good friend. So they need to be educated. But the problem is that they don't want to change their way of thinking. Because I was reading something the other day and it said only 50% of America is white and 40% is black and brown. That frightens them, because in the next 10 years or so, it would be even less than 50%. So what we have to do is we have to be the strong person. And you get nowhere by fighting a person with a gun or a knife. And sometimes you can't even talk because they don't hear you. But what I have learned from this episode in January 6th, and I'm thankful to God that none of us were in it. I'm thankful to know that the white people, the white supremacists, they see themselves. And guess what? It doesn't look good. And they're embarrassed. But they're going to still hold on to that white supremacist attitude. But I'm here to tell you, it's not going to last long. We cannot operate in the world like this. We are divided. And it says, divided we fall. And we don't need to fall. We need to come together. There's too many things we can do together and share. We do not need to fight. We do not need to fall. No man is greater than the next person. We are all God's children. So whenever you are approached by anybody that calls you out of your name, yes, I know you want to smack them. Back in the day, I wanted to fight. But as I've gotten older, I realized that people that don't know better, they won't do better. So tell them, God bless you, and walk away. But know where you stand. Racial justice has to stop. But as one, we must work together. God bless you. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Reverend Campbell. Reverend Campbell, again, a board member of Working Family Solidarity. I saw in the chat a couple people asked, and she is the director of For Your Consciousness Ministry. And she had to jump off. I think she may still be on, but I think she has to jump off very soon. She has another Zoom meeting. So she was nice enough to spend some time. She talked about some of her experiences in the South, but she and I have known each other now about 10 years, maybe a little more. And she has plenty of other experiences right here in Chicago with some pretty difficult things. And we came together around the idea that Latinx people and African Americans are natural allies, but we've been sort of trained to see each other as competition for scarce resources. and really taught to look at each other like either that person's going to get the job or I'm going to get the job. So I'm going to try to get the job. And we sort of end up going into our different groups. So we're trying to work together. I also saw some of you say in the chat that you had some trouble with the sound getting unmuted, or even looking like you could get unmuted, or the video. I've tried to go back through and invite everyone, to be able to talk and so on. And on some, when I press it, I get a message saying this person has an older version of Zoom, which could mean it's only a few months old, and therefore they can't necessarily sync with the video or other aspects. So I'm very sorry about that. And we're going to have to try to do a better job of letting everyone know to try to get the latest version of Zoom. So bear with us. If you are able to use all the different functions, please let us know if you would like to say anything. I can transition us over for another moment, but if anyone would like to talk, this is about sharing experiences, thoughts, but also feelings, things that you think. It can be very wide ranging, right? So it can be both personal, or it can be analyzing what you think we need to do to defeat racism and have unity that works for all low income and middle income families. So I really urge anyone here, I know a number of you, I don't really want to call on people, but please feel free to say anything.
Hi, I'm Dolores Castañeda from Little Village.
Dolores.
I had a question. You think it's possible to have like infograms in our community more healing about, united Latino and African American community together, because we neighbors and we're not together, and maybe has like that kind of message, like to encourage us to open conversation, to be a united community and working together for the same issues. Right now, I think it's that time to healing, because with the last past president, and now we had a new president, open the door to healing component in our communities, because we have so many trauma with that presidential situation. And now I think it's time to unite it, to be more, feel like a family together and working together. I don't know, this is my question.
So Dolores, I will happily say a brief thing, but then I think I would welcome, not so much question answer, because I can give a quick opinion. I urge others who are listening to Dolores talk about, how we can find more ways in the African American and Latinx communities to build solidarity. I think that, we're trying to do our part. We think we do it imperfectly and we need to do it better. And we're a small organization. But part of the idea of these talks is to really honestly look at things. And today, really looking at where the racism comes from, that all of us are trained to feel towards the darkest skinned people, towards African Americans and Black people. And it works, I think, slightly different for Latinx community versus whites. Whites tend to think they're superior because they're trained to think that way from birth. Some, of course, don't like that and decide to fight against that. For many of us in the Latinx community, I think we're told that by the white power structure that you are whiter than Black people, so you can sort of be slightly more accepted as long as you don't get uppity, as long as you don't actually then start demanding all of your rights and rights for other people of color, That's been my experience. And so, in my opinion, it's really important for the most oppressed workers, for African American and Black, and Latinx especially, for us to come together as an important part of defeating, like the theme today of anti-Black racism. I think as a Latinx person, what I can do and our organization tries to do is reject the notion that we in the Latinx community are any better than anyone else, and that we're workers like everyone else, and that we need to be there for our African American brothers and sisters more than we have in the past. So we try to do that through fighting for better jobs and better housing. But I really welcome other comments coming off of what Dolores talked about. How can we reach that unity, not just with Latinos, but how do other people feel about how we can overcome, the way we're trained to look down upon Black people. I also welcome any person any African American person, of course, to share any other feelings you have about how this has worked out and the kind of things that you see the rest of the community perhaps not doing. Maybe talking a lot of stuff, but not really, living out a true solidarity. Adriana, I don't know if you had a thought on that.
Well, I just wanted to sort of chime in here on Reverend Campbell's remarks, because I think one of the things, and sorry, I put a little cough drop in because my throat is sore. One of the things that I think we can all relate to is that we're often put daily in situations where we feel that we are powerless. You're working with a police officer who pulls you over. It leaves you in a vulnerable situation. You're being called names on the street, or you're being treated unfairly in the workplace, or you're being, there are different expectations placed upon you, whether that's in your behavior or your economic status, the way that you dress. These are all the subtle ways that we interact with each other. And we don't think about it. We don't think about it a lot. We just get used to it. We get used to people calling us out of our names. We get used to the bad treatment, and we try to rise above it. We try to ignore it and take the higher road. And I think that those are all the right things. But I want to just emphasize that as a community, and this is something that I know that Working Family Solidarity has done remarkably in the past in building these racial unity dialogues, is that by coming together, Latinx, African Americans, and other underrepresented groups, there is a power shift, right? We saw it this past year with the Black Lives Matter movement, where people they were forced to get off the sidelines. They were forced to step up and say, you know what, this is not okay. And it started and it grew. And then you saw people from other countries around the world who were also standing up, not only for what was going on here in the United States, but what's happening in their countries. Because I can tell you, it's the same story. In every culture, the tone of your skin has some type of association for how we treat people. And that we need to change. We need to be better about making sure that people are being treated not only equally, but just in a better, more respectful, fundamental human right kind of way. And so I'm just curious, for our folks participating today, if you want to share experiences, whether they be in the workplace or in your community, what have you seen, even in these past 6 months, as we've seen the effects of and the spotlight on how we treat folks?
Okay, so let me also, so let's come back. Anyone can talk about that. I also saw, if I saw correctly, Asia, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Susan, is that Susan Trammell, wanted
Yes.
to, had a
Susan
question?
Trammell. Mm-hmm. Hi. I have a daughter who her father's Mexican, and one of my fears when she gets older is that she might be pulled over by the police just because of the color of her skin and everything. And I see articles on CNN and things about how Black people have the talk with their children, especially their male children, you know, how to act when and if they get pulled over. And I was wondering if like anyone could give me ideas of how to approach that discussion with my daughter, and when is it, you know, is it too young to do it at 10? Or I guess as a white person, those kind of thoughts never really crossed my mind until I had my daughter.
Can I say something about it? I'm Dolores.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had $3 and one boy, and I live in a little village community. And my daughter has the experience when they walk into the school, the police stop them and start, you know, say terrible things to my girls. And it's always happen. The only thing you need to explain to your daughter about she need to be careful, because usually they don't care, only see you color, and they start bother. For me, so put me so angry to hear how they treat my daughters when they not do even anything. Yes, police brutality. Yes, to use the power to intimidate girls, intimidate the community. And when you facing the police and say something about it, they try to intimidate you. And I know it's very hard situation, and but it's constantly happen in brown and Black community about use the power, especially in young adults.
Okay. So I'm not sure if anyone else wanted to address that. The theme of the talk today, the theme of the discussion was specifically African American experience and anti-Black racism. So all comments, though, are welcome. I think what we find is when we do these talks, sometimes it's on immigration, anti-immigrant, anti-Latinx community, or people of color fighting each other. Whatever happened, we almost always end up coming back to some of the same themes of sort of all people of color are treated really bad, and sort of how can we unite to fight that across, you know, communities. But I think it's also important that we continue. I certainly would welcome comments having to do with African Americans and anti-Black racism. But again, I think we Latinx people quickly see the similarities, right? They're pulled over, we're pulled over. We're followed when we go into malls, they're followed when they go into malls. And I think that's one reason we need to really look at where the anti-Black racism comes from, because too many of us in the Latinx community buy into that. I know, because I've been around and I hear what we say about Black folks, right? So we need to really kind of figure out where that comes from. And then I think, again, look at the ways we can support each other. When Blacks are stopped by police, we need to be there. When we're stopped by police, we want Black people to support us. And once we build that solidarity, we can really do some damage. So I wonder if there are any other comments on that theme about being stopped or other things. I see someone saying may
Oh, that's me.
may I be unmuted? Okay, thank you, Jesse. Sorry, I hoped I unmuted it, but I thought maybe I didn't. Good. Please go ahead,
You
Jesse.
did. I think I had the older version of Zoom, but I guess there's so much to say or so many ways to go or um, so much to think about. But I guess I would just I would just start with the summary of please be kinder. Please be kinder. Just in my experience, you know, because I'm Black and I'm male, and gosh, and not only that, but you know, just physically, I am what you would think of as like is like somebody who can hurt you just because of my physical size. And I just get it a lot. I get it a lot all the time, every day. And so I think, Adriana, you mentioned maybe somebody might say something, but a lot of times people just don't say anything. But it's just in the way people react to me. And it's like, I'm like they say in the Bible, when you have leprosy, sometimes I have leprosy. And it's like, whether it's like people don't want to, they want to avoid me, or they want to think I'm a threat, or if I'm in the store, they think I'm stealing something or that I'm gonna steal something. And I think that on the one hand, the world out there is a dangerous world, yes, and I really wish that everybody could be safe, but you know, not every person is a criminal. And so that would be my addition to the discussion. And interestingly, I was just reading this post on Twitter, this thread on Twitter, and it was exactly what my experience was at a previous job. And it was like about white people, and you know, lots of people chimed in, Black people, white people, they were all tweeting on this thread. And what I gained from like reading that was that what I was experiencing was my coworkers were treating me basically like I was a criminal, like I was a thief, like I was going to go in their book bags. And I would try and bring it up to them, and I would always be shut down. And I didn't know what that was, but they said that it was, what I read today was that like, it's kind of a waspy thing. Like, so a cultural thing related to your white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, where people don't talk about the rude things. They don't talk about the things that can hurt your feelings. And whereas Black people, we want to do the real talk. We want to speak truthfully. And that's what I wanted in my job. I just wanted to have everything laid out. Just lay it out. Am I making you uncomfortable? What's going on? You know, and nobody ever said anything. And it was just a very uncomfortable experience. You know, it was a cause for a lot of disappointment, a lot of disappointing days. So for what that's worth, I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate it. I think we all do. And yeah, I saw that Sandra has a comment. And again, if we miss anyone, please forgive us. Just put your name right back in the chat and so on. I think Karina has her hand up. But Sandra, if you would like to go ahead, that would be great.
Sí, gracias, Leonie. Gracias por crear este espacio para hablar de este tema tan importante. Pero antes de hacer mi comentario, ¿hay alguna razón específica por la que se está grabando esta sesión?
You know, I'll answer in English just because I can't remember, but I think the people hearing me are gonna be more English speakers. I can never remember how the interpretation works, but no hemos pensado en qué exactamente vamos a hacer con esto, pero si te sientes incómoda que estemos grabando, podemos tener más cuidado. ¿Tú crees que es mejor no usar?
Me parece que es un tema bastante delicado, bastante sensible y también un espacio bastante íntimo para hablar de estos temas. Okay. Entonces, por eso tenía esa curiosidad. Uno nunca sabe en dónde van a terminar las cosas que uno dijo, ¿no? Entonces.
Yes, no, I really, look, I really appreciate that because I just, we often do teach-ins, so there's a little more presentation and then some discussion. And so I just naturally push recording, but I really appreciate what you're bringing up, and I will commit to not sharing this anywhere unless like every, person who spoke is in agreement, or maybe use some parts of this without naming people, like sort of say something like some of the comments were and generalize the kind of things that come up.
Okay. Sí, me parece.
But thank you for bringing that up. That's a great question. And I kind of like it because what it tells me is that it is something of an intimate dialogue, and that's something that we wanted to create. So I appreciate you bringing up that question.
Sí, gracias. Y también gracias al compañero Jesse que compartió su experiencia. Siempre ayuda mucho cuando se saben de historias que lo tocan a uno de manera tan personal, ¿no? Y el comentario que yo quería hacer es, me parece que en la comunidad latina nosotros no conocemos muy bien cómo, tal vez cómo, ¿cuál es la palabra? Como el racismo. Tenemos diferentes definiciones para el racismo, ¿no? Y a veces no nos damos cuenta cómo lo aprendimos. Por ejemplo, en mi caso, me voy a limitar a hablar de mi propia experiencia. Yo vi mucha discriminación en contra de la gente indígena. Pero yo a eso no necesariamente le llamaba racismo, ¿no? Yo no entendía de esos prejuicios, sino hasta que vine a este país y pude ver de un punto de vista diferente, ¿no? Lo que significa tener prejuicios en contra de otra persona y discriminar a otra persona. A pesar de que para mí era difícil aceptar que yo tenía rasgos de indígena, ¿no? Entonces, es cuando uno se da cuenta de cómo le ha afectado a uno mismo, cuando uno puede verse cuando uno puede entender el impacto que tiene en nosotros el racismo y cómo somos nosotros parte de ese sistema, creo, que es cuando podemos empezar a ver la profundidad del racismo. Cómo nos afecta a nosotros y cómo le afecta a otras personas. De lo contrario, me parece que es algo bastante superficial, ¿no? Aunque hablemos de racismo, me parece que lo vemos de una manera bastante superficial hasta que podemos ver cómo mi vida está ligada a la vida de otra persona que pasa experiencias similares. Y no sé qué tanto me pude explicar, no sé qué tanto pueden entender otras personas a lo que quiero llegar, pero para mí la experiencia fue darme cuenta de que la opresión con la que yo crecí, la que yo viví, lo que yo aprendí sobre sobre cómo rechazarme a mí misma, cómo rechazar mi identidad, era algo que yo no reconocía antes. Me tomó mucho tiempo y un proceso largo para poder entender eso. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Sandra. That was great. Yeah, it feels one thing that we've seen, not just as we've done these over the months, roughly once a month for a number of months on different themes touching on civil rights, immigration, racism, all with attached to a racial theme very directly, or we see how much this society's racism, affects all of us. And I hear what you're saying, Sandra. I think one of the keys, I can't speak for Black people. I think one of the keys for many people of color in general and Latinx people is that, as Sandra was alluding to, is that we're taught to hate ourselves. And we see that sometime I've seen that sometime in the Latinx community. Lighter skinned Latinx people like me think less of darker skinned Latinx people, more indigenous looking, like Sandra was talking about. And so that's something that, again, in our organization, we feel like it's really important to kind of take that apart a bit and look at where that comes from, both personally to liberate ourselves and not hate ourselves or anyone else. But also, as we do that, we can then begin to look at other workers, other low and moderate income families of any background, and really start to see that we have so much more in common. And what we have are cultural differences, color of our skin, and so forth. But that a lot of that comes from and is promoted by very powerful people, because they need the racial divisiveness to continue, sometime within communities and certainly between different racial and ethnic communities. And it's our analysis at Working Family Solidarity that the anti-Black racism, again, is really key to the power structure, because there's a hope that other people of color who are not Black will buy into at least we're a little bit whiter, and sort of see ourselves a little above African Americans, and again, kind of promote this racial divisiveness instead of seeing what I feel like a lot of us Latinx people are saying right now in this dialogue, that we feel a lot of that same pain and oppression. And again, we think that we can undo it, but we can't undo it till we really think about where it comes from. I'm not sure if there's anyone else in line to talk. Karina? Rafa?
Hey, Leone, how are you, brother?
Okay, give me 1 second, Rafa. Just Karina, we're going to go to you next, okay? Vamos a ir contigo ahorita después, Karina.
Sí.
Okay, Rafa va a decir unas palabras y después voy contigo, Karina.
Muy bien.
Okay. I think Rafael is calling in from the West Coast, and this guy and I go back way too many years, kind of like with Adriana, and we have not lived near each other for a long time. But welcome, Rafa, and it's great to have you, man.
Thank you, Leone and Adriana, and all. Thank you for the invitation to participate in good to speak, and I'm glad you're having this space, Leone, because I think you're right. I think that the economic system, how the capitalism work, show us that they have put labels in each of us, right? Labels in language, where we come from, color of our skin. But it's most important, I think, to recognize those. And like you say, right, at the end of the day, so no matter what the color, right, we all are became oppressed from the same system. And the COVID has shown us that we, as in, you know, and Black and Latinos and Latinas and immigrants, we are putting this country now back to work. We are the famous essential worker, right? But we are not being treated like that. And I think you're right, Leon. And I don't know, somebody else mentioned this. Is sometimes the system don't teach us that we are brothers, we're sisters, right? And I think but they can teach us all the time the division, you know, that we need to see different our neighborhood because the color of skin, because the language, and so and so. And I think, Leonel, yes, you're right. The education system needs to be changing in a way to be more inclusive and help us to understand all the barrier that we face, right? Why people talking like that? Why people background? But the system don't teach us that, you know, unfortunately. So, and until we face the discrimination in a workplace, we will be able to understand that. But for that, until that moment, right, you know, we don't know how many brothers and sisters we have hurt with our mouth just because we are lack of that background culture. We are background education. Thank you, Leone. Good to see you, brother.
It's great to see you. I haven't talked to you for a
man.
bit, but thank you for calling in, Rafa, and we really appreciate you making time, man. And now, Karina, yo creo que vamos a ir contigo. We're going to go with Karina Rodriguez, who has a comment. ¿Quieres decir algo, Karina?
Sí, bueno, yo realmente quería comentar que de repente el racismo comienza mucho en la familia. Mi esposo y yo los dos somos de Guadalajara y cuando iba a casarme con él, mi abuelo una vez me dijo, debes de mejorar la raza en lugar de empeorarla. Mi esposo es más moreno que yo. Y sí, me llegó mucho porque yo creo que no tenemos que fijarnos en el color de piel del nadie, mientras que los sentimientos sean puros. Nos hace falta mucho educar a nuestros hijos con empatía. Todas las personas somos iguales y deberíamos de tratar todos con igualdad.
Voy a usar mi tableta.
Sentí mucho de repente el comentario de mi abuelo porque fue el único que me lo dijo. No mi papá, no mi mamá, no mis amigos, no mis hermanos, sino mi abuelo, que yo creía que pues de repente la educación que reciben mis papás fueron de parte de ellos. Y es triste darse cuenta.
You're on mute, Leone.
Yes, well, your friendly facilitator here left himself on mute, and I can assure you I gave an incredible speech while none of you could hear me. I'll try to recap it later. Thank you, though, Karina, and thanks, Adriana, for calling that to my attention. Thanks, Karina. And like Karina was talking about how racism, starts in our family, and that's where we can stop it. One of the things that we like to remind each other, because we all need help overcoming the racism that each of us is trained to have, right? In a way, all 40-something of us here today can look at this like a giant Alcoholics Anonymous support group, Racists Anonymous, right? And especially lighter-skinned people, because we're taught, we're not born racist, but we're taught to be that way. And the only way we can overcome that, we believe, is not so much just through personal journey, although that's important, but we think it's coming together, again, across low and moderate income families, that we all get up in the morning and and work hard as we can to pay the rent or mortgage and have some food and send our kids to school, right? And so if we support each other, then we think we have a chance at overcoming the racism that we're all taught to feel. But it's not going to happen unless we all feel like we're supporting each other in that journey. And it takes a lot of honesty, because it's not easy for some people. It's not easy for anyone, but it's extremely hard for some people to admit that racism is a problem and that white supremacy is the socio-cultural paradigm in our country. So one reason we wanted to name the theme of African American experience and anti-Black racism today, although frankly we've discussed it a number of times in our civil rights teach-in and many others in recent months. It's an important theme. The reason it's so critical for all of us, even if we're not Black, is we won't find our liberation until Black people are liberated. And we can move from a place of saying, for example, myself as a Latinx person saying, I am going to help Black people. That's one way to look at it, kind of altruistic. The superior way, we believe, is I can say, I believe with all my heart that it's in my interest that Black people are free. It's in my interest. Of course, it's in theirs, and that's a good thing to do. But as African Americans are doing better, that means we're changing the fundamental way our society works for everyone. And every human being is going to be better off. But we first have to come to grips with the fact that we've really perfected racism in this particular society, especially from the wealthy elites. So we need to slowly but steadily untangle that mess. And then we all feel a lot more liberated when we can stop seeing African Americans as worse than anyone else or as people who should be oppressed, right? We can realize it's in our own interest to stop doing that and to come together. I am not sure, Asia, if anyone else is in line. I would certainly encourage you to be in line. I did see a number of comments. I don't know if anyone wants to say any of the comments or make a comment. It's okay if some people are a little more shy, but I would encourage you to say a couple of things if you'd like to. Some people have written some really great comments. I don't know if anyone would like to say a little bit more about their comment. I see that perhaps Felicia Brown had a question. If that's true, Felicia, please have at it.
Yes, so I had commented a couple things, and this is actually specifically for people of either, I guess really any person of color could answer this. My situation is a little bit different because my husband and I recently adopted 3 Black children. And so they've been with us for about 9 months at this point. And so one of the things that we're just running into already is that my children are feeling this weight of being different, especially being African American with white parents. And we definitely get the stares and the things in the stores or different places like that. And so really what I was just hoping to hear from people who have experienced this is, how do you kind of insulate that or insulate yourself against that? Or how do you deal with that? How do you teach your children about it? I am reading all kinds of books and attending things like this and doing multiple studies. But it's different than having conversations with real people. So, and I know that is, thank you for being on here, because it is very heavy emotional work, especially when you have white people like me who are kind of clueless because we've been able to be privileged our whole life and not have to deal with that. And so I'm absolutely acknowledging that I have had that privilege. And what I have told my husband lately is that we no longer have the privilege of being quote unquote colorblind, because that doesn't exist for us anymore. I saw that somebody just posted something about This Is Us, and that is funny to me because we call our children the Big Three, which originated from This Is Us. So that just had a special connection. So just wanted to let you know that. But yes, if anybody has any suggestions on kind of how to just teach our children those things and really how to help them build resiliency, that would be very helpful for me.
So that's a handful. Would anyone like to say anything about that before we see if anyone has any other question or comment, or anything tangentially related to that issue? I have two children, but my wife's Mexican. My situation is my father's from Italy. My mom is Mexican, but I've grown up pretty strongly identifying as a Latino male, and my wife's from Mexico. So, you know, our kids are Mexican American. We speak Spanish at home. So it's a little different. So I don't know what it might be like. I had an African American stepfather starting when I was 4 till about 13 years of age. He was active in civil rights, and he and my mom were community organizers. So I got a lot of my questioning about what's going on in the society from them. And I think that a lot of my passion for trying to see if there's a way we can build solidarity between our two communities and other communities, I think came out of kind of how I was raised in a few kind of split households. But I don't know if I have I'll say something just because I don't see any, or, oh no, do people have, does anyone who has their hand up, do they want to talk about this? Just jump in if you do.
Matthew Robinson.
Yes, thank you, Asia.
Yeah, did someone, I'm sorry, did someone want to jump in? That would be great.
Soy Dolores, oh, sorry. Is another
Matthew Robinson is on the call. He's one of our board members. I want to make sure that we give him, he has something to say on this, so I just want to make sure that we could get to him next.
Cool. So, okay, so I'm a little lost because I'm trying to be nice, but I don't know if I am being nice. Is Matthew next? Asia, you tell me who to call next, please.
Matthew is next.
Matthew's next, and I'm so sorry to everyone else. We will, I see that, Arnie, I see you have your hand up, Jesse, Dolores, and we will get to everyone, okay? So thank you for calling that to my attention. Matthew, please go ahead. And yes, let me quickly say with great pride, this young brother is also a board member of Working Family Solidarity. We're very lucky to have him with us. Please go ahead, Matthew. Matthew? Okay. So
double check and make sure that he's not still muted by the admin.
Okay, I'm looking and I don't see him anywhere.
He is on, Leone. He is saying that he is muted, so he may not be able to use his audio.
And you know what? I cannot find him. Let me keep looking. Give me 1 second. I apologize so much. He's not showing up. There we go. Okay, go ahead, Matthew.
Hey, now I think you can hear me.
Yes, I finally found you. I don't know. I literally could not even see the icon for your name, but it finally came up. Sorry, please go ahead.
Thanks, Larry. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about this one because my family's been biracial since like my great-grandpa, my great-great-grandpa actually, and my parents who raised me are a black and white couple. So, you know, I can kind of relate to being a black man and I'm walking around with this white dad. and people are like, wait, that's your dad? Like, that doesn't make sense. So I just wanted to speak about that and some things that you might be able to do. I forget whose name was asking, Falicia Brown, I think. I'll just kind of speak generally because I could go on and on and on. But something that I think would help your kids a lot is to not stray away from conversations about the history of the country and to be actually real about it. You know, I had several like cursory convos with my parents. They would tell me how they couldn't go to certain places because they could be attacked for going into a bar or some store in town. I grew up in central Illinois, and you know, they were dating in the 60s, 70s. So they would tell me that there were places they couldn't go. And that sort of set the foundation of like, oh, wow, things used to be different for me. Then my parents talked to me about redlining and what that means after I read about it on Wikipedia. So they never like strayed away or tried to tell me like, oh, things are so different now, you don't have to worry about that. Another thing I guess I would suggest is I always had the feeling that I could see myself in anyone who I admired, regardless of their race or gender. And I think that that really was empowering for me growing up. And over time, I just learned that like that's gonna run up against some obstacles with some people. Some people you'll see yourself in and kind of admire them and be very disappointed at how they treat you. So you can help them a lot by not avoiding those conversations, by telling them that they are great and consistently doing that, and telling them that there will be obstacles, and when they encounter it, you can help them process what's going on. Tell them you'll stand up for them. Tell them that you're not different than they are. And I think those sort of things help. And I think you'll know what else to do by their personalities and the things they bring to you. Make sure they have Black role models and they can see Black people achieving things, and they know Black is beautiful and excellent. Those sorts of things really helped me growing up. And I definitely had moments where, you know, I wouldn't say ashamed, but ashamed at the history of the country and what it could do to me and those sorts of things. But being real and optimistic helps me through that. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. And if I'm seeing right, and Asia can help with the order, but I do see a few hands up. Claudia, sí, vas a poder hablar. Dame un segundo, Clau. We're just going to get the order here. I do see a few more. Jesse, Dolores, and Claudia. We'll get to all of you. Let's go to those three, and then let's see what time it is, just so we don't keep people, you know, too late. Asia, do you remember which one is next?
I don't.
Okay.
I think it might be Guadalupe, but I also wanted to add a comment if I can.
Please.
So I guess I'll turn my camera back on. So my family is also biracial. My mom is South Korean and my dad is African American, and my mom was adopted by a white family. So we kind of have a lot of different cultures and a lot of different experiences that come into our family. And I just want to say that I agree with everything that Matthew said. And I also wanted to, I guess, let you know, Falicia, that it's okay if you don't understand everything that they're into, because a lot of their influences are going to come from culture, media, you know, the people that they're around. And so that means that there might be a song that maybe you just don't like. It's something that you don't get or you don't quite understand it. And that's going to be okay, because the things that they're going to be into and the influences that they're going to really stick to and take to are going to change. And it's part of the process of identification, right? We all want to figure out who we are, and that's through music, and that's through the shows that we watch, like This Is Us and things like that. And sometimes, my white grandparents might not understand exactly what it is that I'm talking about. And they're just like, okay, great, that sounds good. I'm so glad that you like that thing, and leave it at that. And in that way, I still feel supported, that they are, backing me up in the things that I want to do and the things that I'm interested in, even if they don't quite understand it. And I think that for me, as I've moved around, as I've experienced a lot of different things in terms of not being Black enough or not being Asian enough, you get those kind of comments. And when I think back to how, I'll have a conversation with my Latina cousin or, whoever it is in my family, and at the end of the day, they continue to accept me how I am for who I am. The comments that come from people who don't understand my family, who don't understand my experiences, they just kind of roll off, right? Because at the end of the day, I know who I am, and I was able to explore who I was, and my family allowed that to happen, and they supported me in that. And I know that I fit into my family the way that I should. So, the things that we come up with, even if it's something that you don't get, something that you don't understand, it's all part of the process of self-identification and figuring out who we are and things like that. So I would just say support your children in any way you can as they go through that exploration phase. And I think that the support as a family is what is really gonna kind of get them through, as through the stares and the comments and the things like that. So and I think Guadalupe is next, Leona.
Guadalupe is next. Guadalupe. Okay, these now I see Jesse, Dolores, and Claudia have their hands up. Is that?
Well, I can go ahead.
Jesse, go ahead. We will get to everyone who has their hand up right now. I can't guarantee past that, but everyone. So Jesse,
yes,
Dolores, and Claudia are the hands that I see, and we will get to all of you before we end. Absolutely. So go ahead, Jesse.
Yes, Falicia, I think it is. Resiliency was exactly the word that I was thinking of, and just from in my own experience, I would say just confidence, however that develops, help them to develop confidence. And just from what I've observed, a lot of people who do overcome, they have really strong social bonds, and they're very tough, and so yeah. In relationships, they have good relationships, and they have strong social bonds. So for what that's worth, yeah.
Thanks, Jesse. Thank you. Let me add one transitional comment, and then we'll go to Dolores. If you'll allow me, we'll go to Claudia, just because she has not spoken yet, and then we will go to you. So you will definitely be able to talk in one moment again. I just wanted to say, on the topic of helping people feel confident and that they belong, and that they're not alone, of whatever race or possibly biracial and so on, or raised by parents of a different race and so on. One of the things that we believe at Working Family Solidarity is that when you build a movement where people really feel included and that we're struggling together, and if it's not just one race, so it's multiracial, we believe that that helps with a lot of the things we're talking about. So people feel good. People feel valued, not because they're a certain race or ethnicity, or because they're not, but because they can add something to the common good. They're concerned about other people, and they work together with other people so that we can all be better off. So just to kind of slide that in, we're fighting on very real economic and racial issues, but it also ends up helping a lot of people feel a lot closer and helping the individuals feel a lot better about themselves. So that's something that's important. One thing I am hearing as I go to Claudia, and then we will go with you next, Dolores, is Claudia says she's having trouble unmuting. So again, give me a second. Okay. Clau, ¿puedes hablar? ¿Me puedes escuchar?
Sí, escucho.
Okay. Go ahead, Clau.
Solo quería comentar que el tema del racismo está muy conectado al capitalismo. Básicamente tratan de mantener a las personas miedo con el sueldo más bajo posible, lo más divididos posible, porque todo eso es más ganancias. Yo creo que todo tiene que ver con mantener a la gente con el más mayor miedo posible, la mayor desesperación económica, las personas más hacer más porque están viviendo, están viviendo en un miedo. Yo vengo de México, y tengo más de 15 años que estoy viviendo años, y me he dado cuenta de que es un plan para mantener a las personas, reprimir a la gente, mantenerlos trabajando como esclavos sin que tengan voz, el valor, o quieren quitarnos el valor de poder ser. Entonces, lo que yo hago con mis hijos es repitiendo que tienen una mamá mexicana y que México es bonito, que México es linda, que todos somos bonitos, no importa que tengamos. Y les hablo todo el tiempo español, porque de que tienen su mamá mexicana y de que hablan español. Les digo que las personas afroamericanas, las personas mexicanas, todos sentimos igual. El hecho de que tengamos el piel diferente no nos hace menos sensibles al dolor. Somos iguales. Tenemos que entender y tenemos que explicar a nuestros hijos de que todo es un plan en una caja donde es muy difícil salir, porque de esa manera nos están controlando. Por eso, no, en México sí, no, decían, tu hija es más blanquita, tú. Es lo que escuchamos, los colores de piel diferentes de las personas. Ahora nuestro trabajo es enseñarles a nuestros hijos de que somos iguales, de que tenemos que ser orgullosos de quiénes somos, de cómo somos. No importa el color de piel, pero de tratarlos de una manera respetuosa. No queremos que nos traten a nosotros. Mam.
Ok.
Yo creo que es todo. Gracias.
Gracias, Clau.
Papi.
Hola, bebé. ¿Qué estás haciendo? Ok, pónganse, múdense.
Ok.
Thank you very much, Clau. And I'll just quickly say, a few people had to get off already. It's 7:30, and we can gladly extend a few more minutes, no problem. I do want to thank people in case you have to leave, and we will keep your email and let you know to remind you, exactly 4 Thursdays, 4 weeks from today, we're going to do a teach-in. So a little bit more of a presentation about the history of white supremacy. Obviously, that could be a year-long course, but we're just going to remind people of some of the key moments in history, legal history, and other things that have really codified white supremacy in the United States, and a little bit about some of the hate groups that have developed into armed terrorists. There's a whole history there, not just the Ku Klux Klan, but a lot of the others that have formed in recent decades. So we're going to talk about that. That's going to be the 25th of February, about a half an hour, maybe a little longer presentation, and then leave time for plenty of discussion, question and answers, and comments. So we'll be letting you know about that in case you have to go soon. But we will go now with Dolores Castañeda.
Sí, voy a decirlo rápido en español porque me inspiró mucho lo que dijo la señora. Yo siendo mamá de 4 hijos que siempre hemos experimentado la discriminación, mi sugerencia para ella sería siempre darles, yo sé que ella ahorita les está dando mucho amor a sus hijos y que quiere lo mejor para ellos, pero siempre darles ese amor y decirles que el color de piel no importa y los comentarios que lleguen negativos hacia ellos, siempre ella trata de explicarles de una manera que ellos no se sientan ofendidos. Solamente estoy hablando de eso, del amor, de hacerlos sentir que ellos son hermosos como son, del color que son, y eso es lo más importante, que ellos se sientan confortables con lo que ellos son, y los comentarios exteriores en realidad no les van a afectar porque tienen ese apoyo de la familia y el amor que deben de siempre presentar.
Thank you very much, Dolores. Muchas gracias. We appreciate it big time. It's just slightly after 7:30. A number of people have had to log off, which is very understandable. And this could be a really long dialogue, obviously, and we're not done. And that's why we've been doing them for a while, every 3 weeks. Now we're about every month. We will be letting you know about other ones. And thank you very, very much for participating. Those who didn't want to talk but wanted to listen, those who put into words in the chat, we appreciate it. Again, our idea is that together we can really try to slough off all the racism that we're trained to feel and begin to build a solidarity between working families. That's why we call ourselves Working Family Solidarity. And it's a pretty open net. It really invites people of all races to come together. However, especially for lighter skinned people, we do want to remember that we can't have an honest dialogue about what we need to make better in this country if we don't all look at the way racism has shaped this country. It was founded on the disempowerment of people of color. That's not to get angry at anyone. That's just to state historical fact. But if you're darker skinned or lighter skinned or somewhere in between, there's room for all of us. We just have to figure out how to reset our minds and come together and fight for better jobs and housing and a lot of other things that we need. So thank you so much for being in touch. And I wish you all a terrific evening. Have a blessed week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.